Hey everyone, Beyond TCG here, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokemon Horizon Rising set review. Today we're moving on and covering our Darkness and Metal Pokemon in the set. So let's hop into the details. So first off, before even going into that, just a reminder to everyone, these are made at the pokecardmaker.net/creator. Awesome website, not sponsored or anything. I just want to shout them out because couldn't have made these cards without that site. And if you want to make your own custom cards, definitely go check that out. All right, let's hop into some card details. So what are we going to see today? We're going to see two non-evolving basics in the Darkness type and three in Metal. Again, you'll see kind of these non-evolving basic numbers change a little bit, and when you see the overall set, it has to do with just kind of having an equal number based off of the different types, and those details move further when we get there. But besides that, there's the standard 4 basics that evolve into a Stage 1, and 2 basics that evolve all the way into a Stage 2 Pokemon. And just a disclaimer, again, this art here comes from the internet. There's awesome artists who did this. I'm just putting the artwork on the card frames to kind of give them some more style and life to them. So big shout out to any of those artists. All right, starting off, we want to look into the Darkness type. So Darkness Pokemon, they've got two main themes in this set. First, they're often going to damage themselves for different additional effects. So you'll see a lot of these Darkness Pokemon that'll injure themselves and get a bonus for it, or they'll do extra damage for having damage counters, something along those lines. Second, they actually get bonuses for having less Pokemon in play. So you'll see a lot of Darkness Pokemon that if they're by themselves, maybe they'll deal extra damage or get more cards. Anyway, I don't want to get into the spoilers of it. Let's just check out these cards. So starting off with our non-evolving basics, we have Sableye here. You'll probably recognize this one from the first episode with 70 HP. For just a single Darkness Energy, it has the Shadow Swipes attack. Put any number of damage counters on this Pokemon that would not knock it out. Then flip a coin equal to the amount of damage counters you place this way. This attack does 30 damage times the number of heads you flip. Now, if you know me as a designer, maybe you heard this in a previous episode, I really don't like coin flipping in the Pokemon card game. I think it creates too much high variance, but I think there's some clever ways that you can make cards out of it, and that's what this card is. So it's kind of a high risk versus high reward card, but I think it's kind of fun in the way that you kind of gamble with those. And notably, this Sableye just has Fairy Weakness because that's more accurate to the video games. Just something to shout out there. Next up, we have Guzzlord here, an Ultra Beast with 150 HP. As the ability Ultra Warp, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to your bench, you may look at your prize cards. If you do, you may add one of those prize cards to your hand and then prize Guzzlord. So basically, if there's any prize card that you notice is probably there and you need to get it out of the prizes and into your deck, which I think is often a situation you run into and kind of ruins the consistency of your deck, Guzzlord's there to make sure that you can get whatever card you're looking for. It also complements itself with the quadruple darkness black hole attack that does 130, but if you knock out a Pokemon, you get 2 extra prize cards for it. So again, really great utility mon. I expect to see in a bunch of decks, and if you happen to get that attack off, I mean, you deserve 2 prize cards. All right, next with our evolutions, we start with Spinarak here with 50 HP. Has the ability Scary Face. If this Pokemon is knocked out, discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. And a little darkness there, Poison Sting, poisons the opposing Pokemon. Again, you may have seen this in the intro episode. It punishes your opponent for knocking it out early by making them discard an energy card. So just really nice there. And if you do get to evolve it, it evolves into Ariados here with 90 HP. And the Dark Web attack, Dark Colorless, 80 damage. You may put 3 damage counters on this Pokemon. If you do, you may switch an opponent's benched Pokemon with their active Pokemon, then deal damage to the new active Pokemon. It's Boss's Orders, folks. You know how good that card is. This card allows you to choose. Yes, you got to put extra damage counters, but if you're using Boss's Orders, you're probably dragging out something that your opponent really doesn't want in the active spot, and that's where this card becomes really powerful. So, super cool card there. Next evolution, we have Houndour here with 70 HP. Starts off with a simple Dark Colorless Fire Fang attack, 30 damage, burns the opposing Pokemon. Notably has weakness to water because it doesn't really make sense to be weak to grass in this case. And it evolves into Houndoom here with 130 HP. Lone Hound, Dark Colorless, 80 damage plus 80 more damage if this is the only Pokemon you have in play. So again, another high risk, high reward, that theme I was talking about where if they're kind of by themselves, you get a bonus. 160 damage for 2 energy. Pretty good for just having Houndoom in play. So definitely a cool card to think about while you're playing. Next evolution, we have Scraggy here with 80 HP, Dark Colorless, Major Headbutt, does 60 damage, and confuses Scraggy. So 60 for 2 energy on a basic is like pretty okay with those stats, but naturally might go, confusion, that kind of stinks. Well, you may be happy that you hit yourself in confusion when it evolves into Scrafty here with 120 HP. Scrafty for just a single dark energy has Angry Headbutt. This attack does 10 damage times the number of damage counters on all of your Pokemon. Yes, every single one. So first off, if Scraggy hits itself in confusion, that's more damage counters for your Scrafty to deal extra damage. And then naturally, as long as your benched Pokemon are loaded with damage counters, you can be doing a chunk of damage this way with your Angry Headbutt attack. So again, really, really cool card to build your deck around, and keep an eye out on more Darkness Pokemon that put damage counters on them, like Sableye from earlier. All right, now for our final double evolution here, we start with Zorua, 60 HP, Darkness Bite deals 20 damage, but most importantly, Dark Colorless Evolutionary Disguise. You may put 3 damage counters on one of your benched Pokemon. If you do, search your deck for a Zoroark card, reveal it and add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. And so now this gets interesting. What is this Zoroark card doing? Zoroark has 110 HP, has the ability Broken Illusion. You may evolve this Pokemon onto any of your basic Pokemon with damage counters. So already right there, this is super cool. This is basically like from the video games, how you take damage and then suddenly Zoroark is revealed, and that's where he kind of evolves into anything. And then he has a simple colorless Night Claws, 20 damage times the number of energy attached to both active Pokemon. So this Zoroark's great. It's kind of like a anti-meta card where it can show up on just anything with damage counters. Like if your opponent seems to be stocking a lot of energy, this is great as an alternate to evolve into to get that damage in. So just really awesome. And then again, Zorua here can not only evolve into Zoroark, but it puts the damage counters on a benched Pokemon. And now any of you, or that benched Pokemon in particular, because it has the damage counters, can turn into Zoroark. So looking forward to seeing people playing this card. Let's start with our big stage 2s now. We start off with Sandile with 70 HP. Colorless Dark Sand. This attack does 10 damage times the number of benched Pokemon you have. Real simple attack. It's going to do 50 damage for Colorless, which is pretty okay for a basic, but we might find there's some synergy there with making sure that you drop most of your hand to your bench as it evolves into Krokorok with 130 HP. Darkness Colorless Thrashing About. You may discard one of your benched Pokemon and all cards attached to it. If you do, this attack does 50 plus 70 more damage. So kind of synergizing from that Dark Sand from already having some benched Pokemon in play. Helps set up maybe your Houndoom in the future by having almost no Pokemon in play. And again, it kind of combines at the end with Crocodile here with 210 HP. Darkness Colorless Destructive Rage. You may discard any number of your benched Pokemon and all cards attached to them. This attack deals 40 damage times the number of Pokemon you discarded this way. So again, almost like an even stronger version of that Thrashing About. And then Darkness Colorless Dark Jealousy. This attack does 50 damage times the number of Pokemon your opponent has more than you. So this is kind of a cool card that combos with itself. If you have a bunch of benched Pokemon, you can get rid of them with Destructive Rage to do a ton of damage. And then later, presumably your opponent now has more Pokemon than you, and you get to take advantage of that by using Dark Jealousy. So card combos with itself, a lot of HP, really, really cool. All right, next with our triple evolutions, we got Dino here with 80 HP. It has a simple Dark Colorless Angry Bite attack for 40, but more significantly, Darkness Never Alone. If you have no other Pokemon in play, you may search your deck for up to 5 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench, shuffle your deck. Okay, so again, another card that takes advantage of being the only Pokemon in play. It evolves into Zweilous here with 100 HP. Again, another simple attack, Dark Color, 120 damage, but it has the Conflicting Heads ability here. Once during your turn, you may put 5 damage counters on this Pokemon. If you do, search your deck for a Pokemon that could evolve from this Pokemon and evolve it, shuffle your deck. So again, this is really good because you can accelerate into that Hydreigon as fast as possible, or if they make some new Zweilous evolution, never knew what Pokemon's going to do in the future. And this Hydreigon, this is one I'm really, really excited for. I hope you all enjoy this design. Let's check out what it is. It's got 210 HP, dark color, triple head blast. Choose 3 times any of these options. So you can choose the first option 3 times in a row. You could choose the second option twice and the third option 1 time. So a lot of options here. Let's see what they are. Your opponent discards a benched Pokemon of their choice and all cards attached to it. So real strong right there. They get to choose, but again, they lose a whole bench Pokemon. Deal 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And this attack deals an extra 70 damage, and this Pokemon deals 30 damage to itself. So, without even combining the different options here, if we think about it, one of the options here is your opponent discards 3 of their benched Pokemon of their choice and all cards attached to them. So you could just wipe their bench right there. Deal 60 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. I mean, if you deal 60 over 2 turns and do 120, I mean, you're probably gathering multiple prize cards right there. Or deal 210 damage in total. Yeah, you deal 90 damage to yourself, but Darkness loves its damage counter, so that works out. And again, that's assuming that you choose all 3 at the same time. I mean, there's so many options with this card. You could make them discard, deal 70 damage, then deal 20 to all their Pokemon. Just a lot of really cool things that you can do here. That's the power of Hydreigon, and I cannot wait to see the decks and gameplay of this card. All right, time to move on to our Metal Pokemon. So, of course, they're going to prevent damage. They do that in the card game. They do that in the video game. That's always what they're good at. They're going to have a lot of abilities that stop them from taking damage. And they also have some strategies that involve retreat costs. So, not necessarily like switching in and out. That's something Lightning does or something along those lines. But just taking advantage of the amount of energy in the retreat cost and either preventing damage or dealing more damage. But again, let's check out these cards. Let's stop talking about just what the deal is. All right, starting off with our non-evolving basics, we have Togedemaru here with 80 HP as the ability Magnetism. All of your Metal Pokemon's retreat costs colorless less for each lightning energy you have in play. And then Metal Colorless Thunderbolt, 40 damage plus 30 more damage if this Pokemon has a lightning energy attached. So again, this card is clearly meant to kind of mix between both the lightning deck and the metal deck. If you decide to put those together, you get the bonus of playing Togedemaru here. So cool synergy card. Next, we have Stakataka, another Ultra Beast to note. 100 HP. Metal Colorless is stack blocks. Return all metal energy in your discard pile to your hand. And then Metal, Heavy Slam, 150. Again, a really simple utility card, a good example of a non-evolving basic that you probably want it around in your deck every now and then, but not something you're going to build your whole strategy around. And finally here, Duraludon with 130 HP has the ability Reflecting Plate. If this Pokemon would take damage, you may deal all of that damage to one of your benched Pokemon instead. And then it has a Metal Colorless, 60 damage plus 70 more damage if your opponent's active Pokemon has an ability. 130 for 3 energy is not bad, but just the fact that you have that ability that, yes, you're redirecting damage, but you're keeping Duraludon in play with energy attached, like you're not losing advantage. I mean, this is a really cool ability and very hard to knock this Pokemon out. So, very cool. All right, starting with our evolutions, we got a Alolan Sandshrew here with 90 HP. Metal Colorless Slide Away. Switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. The new active Pokemon takes 50 less damage during your opponent's next turn. So great way to kind of retreat out that Alolan Sandshrew, keep it alive, but also not lose out by switching in some new weak mod that you don't want to take damage. You get it some protection. And that has a nice simple Metal Color 70 damage Iron Bash attack. And it evolves into a Alolan Sandslash with 120 HP. Metal, call for backup. Search your deck for a basic Metal Pokemon and put it onto your bench. Then switch it with this Pokemon. So Alolan Sandslash also has the ability to kind of retreat out into some other Metal Pokemon and keep itself alive. And if you manage to get 3 Metal Energy on it, you get the Hardened Tackle that not only deals 80 damage, but says during your opponent's turn, if this Pokemon is knocked out, put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until their HP is 10. Absolutely crazy. That cost is a lot, but the fact that Alolan Sandslash keeps switching out, I mean, you're going to pull that off. All right, next up we have Bronzor here. So this ability is a little bit more complicated, and that's why I kept it only at this ability, but 70 HP, Adaptive Shield. Prevent damage dealt to this Pokemon this turn equal to the amount of damage your active Pokemon took last turn. So for example, if your opponent has some big Charizard deck, I don't know, they deal 200 damage during your next turn, Bronzor comes in and then says, okay, I'm going to prevent the next 200 damage dealt to me during the next turn. You know, no attacks because that's something that you want to be able to focus on. It does take a little bit of memorization, but overall it just kind of rewards you as an ultimate shield in case your Pokemon seems to be snowballing with tons of high damage. And naturally, it goes and evolves into Bronzong here with 120 HP. It's got a simple metal, colorless metal sound, 90 damage. But interesting ability with Psychic Pull here. Once during your turn, you may switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon with their active Pokemon. If you do, your turn ends. So again, we already saw an offensive boss's orders earlier with Ariados. This is a defensive boss's orders. You've probably seen opponents do this before. You lose out in your attack, but still, you're pretty happy overall because you're probably annoying them and switching in some Pokemon that they don't want out. So, yeah, nice killed him on there. All right, up next, we're going to check out Pharaoh Seed with 80 HP. Has the ability Metal Shell. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. And then Metal Thorny Body, 10 damage. But during your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 50 less damage from attacks. So as long as you get Pharaoh Seed in and get, one Thorny Body attack off, you're saying 80 less damage next turn, so he has to take 160 just to get knocked out. Nice defensive Mon, very good at protecting itself. And it evolves into Ferrothorn with 140 HP. It has the ability Strong Defense. Prevent all effects of damage from opponent's attacks from Pokemon that just came into play during your opponent's turn. So basically, your opponent can't just play some new Pokemon, I don't know, accelerate energy onto it, and then play switch and then try and attack Ferrothorn. No, you will always know what is coming. Maybe it'll evolve, some bench Pokemon evolves and then you didn't know what that was. But overall, at least you're going to see the basic or that new Pokemon on the bench because otherwise it's not attacking Ferrothorn. And Ferrothorn keeps itself alive as well with Metal Colorless Draining Fines. This attack does 20 damage times the number of energy attached to this Pokemon. Heal damage from this Pokemon equal to the amount of damage dealt. All right, taking a look at one final evolution here, or at least, evolution with just the stage 1. We got Pawniard with 80 HP here. Starts off with Sharpen, Metal. During your next turn, this Pokemon's slash attack does 90 damage and discards an energy attached to the opposing Pokemon, and then slash does 10 normally. This is based on, you'll see so many of these basics that's like, oh, do this attack, and then if you do this other attack, it deals 80 damage or something like that. I don't think that's quite strong enough, so Pawniard here has the advantage of also discarding an energy attached to the opposing Pokemon, so I think kind of a better basic or what you'd want to do for taking a turn that charges that attack up. But it evolves into Bisharp here with 120 HP. For Metal, it has Single Slash, 90 damage, discard an energy attached to this Pokemon, and then Metal Colorless Light Speed Slashes, 80 damage. During your opponent's next turn, their active Pokemon discards all energy used to pay for their attack. So if your opponent manages to survive that 80 damage and goes to attack you, I hope they didn't invest too much energy into their attack because they're about to lose all of it. All right, let's start with our triple stage evolutions. As always, we got Aaron here with 60 HP. Has a sturdy ability, which should be quite familiar to people. If this Pokemon has no damage counters and will be knocked out by damage from an attack, it is not knocked out, and put damage counters on it until it has 10 HP remaining. You see this ability, especially on an Aggron not too long ago in Sword and Shield, sometime during that era. This exact ability exists on these higher stage Pokemon, but that never made any sense to me because if the Pokemon is a stage 2, I mean, it's probably going to get some damage counters eventually. I think this makes way more sense on a basics that's trying to survive, and so it got moved to Aaron here. Aaron evolves into Lairon with 130 HP. It has this Steel Shell ability. This Pokemon takes 20 less damage for each energy more in this Pokemon's retreat cost than the opposing Pokemon's retreat cost. That is a simple Metal Jaws attack. So what does that mean? Basically, Lairon here has 4 retreat costs. So let's say Aaron is trying to attack Lairon. Lairon is going to prevent 60 damage automatically because Aaron only has a retreat cost of 1. So, if your opponent is playing these Pokemon that retreat easily, or maybe they have no retreat cost at all, it's going to be really hard to deal damage to Lairon. So, very good at protecting itself. And then naturally, we're rewarded with Aggron here, 220 HP, Metal Color, Heavy Slam. This attack does 30 damage times the number of energy and the retreat cost of all of your Pokemon. So this is a neat deck that I know does not exist in the card game, and something to definitely think about when you're building your deck. Aggron here is already going to do 4 times 30, so 120 damage right off the bat with that attack. But once you start putting more Pokemon, I mean, you get another Laren on the deck, and then you're already doubling that to 240, get a third one, and I mean, we're knocking out V maxes at that point. So this is a really cool deck build around card. Yes, you got to get to Aggron, but Aaron and Laren protect themselves, and then you're rewarded with this huge attacker. So just make sure you play 3 copies of Switch naturally. All right. Our next one is only going to be 2 stages, and it spoils a little bit of a future card. It is Shieldon here, which evolves from Mysterious Fossil. Yes, that is kind of a spoiler. We will see a new Mysterious Fossil card at the end of the set, but we'll worry about that when we get to items. For now, just know that it evolves from that with 100 HP, and then Metal Wall, Metal Colorless, 60 damage. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all effects of damage dealt by your opponent's Pokemon with special energy attached. So, again, another way of protecting itself. Shieldon is kind of an anti-meta that watches out for special energy. What are the special energy in the set? Well, that's again another episode to stay tuned for. But for now, we're going to wrap up this episode with one more Pokemon, which is naturally Bastiodon with 220 HP. It has a very good attack of Metal Color Color. Shield Head Bash does 140 damage. And another cool ability, Avenging Aegis. Prevent all effects of attacks, including damage from your opponent's Pokemon that were on the bench this turn. Um, so kind of like a more powerful version of Ferrothorn's ability. Ferrothorn checked for Pokemon that just came into play this turn. Bastiodon checks for anything that was on the bench. So even if your opponent's Pokemon's been sitting on the bench for a while, Bastiodon only cares about what's in their active. That is the only thing that can attack it. So if your opponent is sitting there with some big Pokemon with 3 energy on the bench and like, ooh, next turn I'm going to attack, yeah, not going to happen with Bastiodon. So really, really good defensive card for Metal. All right, that's going to be it for this week's episode. Again, stay tuned. Next week, we're going to be hopping right into the fairies and the dragons. I'm sure a lot of you are excited to see what ideas I came up with for fairy, but definitely let me know your favorite cards from this set. I hope at this point we've seen so many types that the deck building gears are starting to turn in everyone's head the same way that they were turning in mine. And thank you again, everyone, for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't know, ring the bell, whatever you can do. As always, I love to see the support, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. This is Beyond TCG. Peace and out.